Several years ago, it was a December like this. There were big bills that were coming through the House and the Senate, one of them being the National Defense Authorization, which passes every single year for the last 6 decades. Stuck in that multi-page bill was a little piece on beneficial ownership. Now, most everybody just didn't even notice what it would be. But in the past couple of years, the Biden administration has released the rules for beneficial ownership and what will be required to be able to deal with quote-unquote opportunities for fraud. What it has become is a way to be able to get from every single small business in America, and I do need to emphasize these are all small business, in fact, the smallest of the small businesses, every LLC, every business owner in America, a list of them of this, their name, their date of birth, their address, and an ID number, that's simple. But then also a listing of all the senior officers of the company, someone who has authority over the appointment or removal of a senior officer, and this little jewel, someone who substantially influences important decisions in your company. Every business owner in America is required by January the 1st, in just a couple of weeks, to turn in that document for every single business that they own. Now, for many folks in real estate or in construction or in many other businesses, they actually start a company and raise it up for that company. And so they may not own one company or have one LLC, they may have 20 or 30. And they've got to go through the paperwork for every single one of those and to be able to turn it in, including answering the question, who influences your important decisions on your company? No one even knows what that means. Well, you may say, well, it's no big deal if they don't turn it in. Oh, no, it is. Because under the rule that's been put out, if they don't turn this form in, it is a $10,000 fine for each company that they don't turn in, or 2 years in jail if they don't submit it. Let that soak in. Every small business owner in America has to turn in who influences their decisions, or they could go to jail for 2 years. Now listen, all of us around this room would say, that's too much. Why is the federal government asking that of every pet owner, of every hair shop, of every builder, of every subcontractor? Why are we asking them who substantially influences them, and what authority do we have and have to do that? Well, it's a good question, actually, because a federal judge just a couple of weeks ago stepped in and did a preliminary injunction, just temporarily, stepped in. This, by the way, was a federal judge that was appointed by President Obama. They stepped in and put a halt on this rule. And they said this rule is, their term, quasi-Orwellian and likely unconstitutional. Now, this was an Obama judge stepping into this. They put a pause on it, but the problem is the pause is completely dependent on the judge at this point. They could unpause at any moment. So the simple thing that I've asked for throughout this entire year is, let's get rid of this rule. This rule should not be there at all. Congress has no right to go to every business owner and hand them a stack of forms and say, fill these out and tell us who helps you make decisions in your company. What in the world? So we have no right to be able to do that. So I've asked all year long, we need to get rid of it entirely. I've not been successful getting that, so we've asked a simple thing. Let's take it out for 1 year. Let's just delay it. Let's get more time to be able to talk about this. This is a big issue that Congress is laying down on them. Now, I have to tell you, I've not been successful getting that either. But you know who has been? The House of Representatives. The House of Representatives passed a 1-year delay on this rule. Wait for it, 420 to 1. 420 to 1. The House said, yeah, this is a massive overreach. Let's pause this for a year at least until we figure out what this actually means. What does this mean for small business owners across the country? They could, in the very earliest time of next year, under a new administration, any single small business in the country could face a $10,000 fine or 2 years in prison if they haven't turned this in. But they've all turned it in already, right? It was due January the 1st. Actually, FinCEN has given us the latest numbers of who has turned it in. Let me just give you a few states as an example and the percentage. In New York State, 80% of the small businesses haven't turned this form in yet. 80%. In my state in Oklahoma, 77% of the small businesses have not turned this form in. In Rhode Island, 72% of the small businesses have not turned this form in. In West Virginia, 80% of the businesses have not turned this form in. In Wisconsin, 74% of the businesses have not turned this form in. That means they could all face, all those businesses could all face a $10,000 fine or 2 years in jail because they haven't submitted a form most of them don't even know exists. Listen, delaying for a year is not a radical proposal. 420 to 1 in the House is a pretty good vote, especially considering the votes of the House in the past week. That's broad bipartisan agreement. All I'm asking is, let's pause this for a year. Let's agree with the House and not have 75 to 80% of American small businesses suddenly be under the heavy hand of a potential fine or jail time because they don't even know this exists. But it does. It's federal law. So that's my simple request that I'm bringing on this very last moment to be able to deal with this.